Welcome back. If it has joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Supreme Court fixes February 26th to hear APC's application for review of the court's verdict on Bayelsa State governorship election. National Human Rights Commission condemns assault on judicial officers, calls for respect for their position, right to privacy and safety. Former President Goodluck Jonathan visits Edo State, commends performance of Governor Godwin Obaseki as state APC faction blames state government for escalating political tension. And Chinese authorities stress unremitting efforts in COVID-19 control, coordination on economic and social development. Plus sports stories. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. The Miyetti Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria and Unity Farmers Cooperative Society in Kaduna State are advocating ranching, a new food processing technology, as antidote to the incessant farmers and herders clashes in the country. The Cattle Breeders Association say, contrary to insinuations that cattle herders are opposed to the establishment of modern livestock farming, members of the association are in support of ranching, a position the Farmers Association agree will foster peaceful coexistence between them.
New innovative technology in silage making towards profitable livestock enterprise and curbing incessant conflicts between herders and farmers is the focus of this summit organized by the Miyetti Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria in collaboration with the African Investors in Diaspora Association. The sole aim is to educate them on the need to embrace innovative technology in the area of silage making, which the organizers believe will solve both security and economic problems in the agribusiness value chain.
We are all here to embrace an innovative technology in the area of silage making. Such initiative, to say the least, is channeled toward eradication of farmers and herders clashes in our community, and it encourages a peaceful coexistence among farmers and members of the host community and cattle herders.
Outside the hall, participants are taken through some practical aspects of the silage technology, which will see farmers and herders living in a cluster and benefiting from each other. While the chairman of the Miyetti Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria commends the foresight of the organizers of the program, the president of the African Investors in Diaspora Association challenges political elites to brace up and show more political will in the issue of insecurity in the country.
Considering this silage making, you see, milk, beef meat will be high within the community, and we encourage farming because of the manure. So we encourage, even though you are not Fulani, you can engage on this.
You see, it will going to unite the farmers and the herders together. They will work together, and everybody needs. The farmers need the herders, and the herders need the farmers because of the and this type of system. We are not rejecting any model of ranches because it's a global system. We are supporting it, and our people are supporting it. What remains now is us to campaign about it. You know, you cannot say 100% everybody needs it. To leave the formal culture, it will be very hard.
The Farmers Cooperative Society has already acquired over 4,000 hectares of land, which is currently being occupied by farmers and herders, where they will build a symbiotic relationship that will translate waste to wealth.
Tonight, we continue with our series focusing on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Our political correspondent, Shewaki Maloye, reports on Goal 16 as we begin the 10-year race to achieving the SDG objectives.
SDG Goal 16, peace, justice, and building strong institutions. I dare say SDG 16 is perhaps the most important of all the goals, as you will find out in the next couple of minutes. Isn't it instructive to note the words of former American President Barack Obama when he said, "Africa does not need strong men, but strong institutions." So let's begin our closer look on where we are as a people on this goal. When we talk about institution as it relates to governance, some of these come to mind. The executive arm of government. You talk about the presidency, the governors, local government chairmen. You talk about the legislature, the judiciary, the police system, military, government institutions. In the real sense of it, as we begin the journey towards 2030 target, where are we?
Law and order in Nigeria, for example, in the hands of the Nigerian police, can we say that such an institution has been transparent?
To even start from a situation where the votes have not been counting all over the Federation, you have seen all the shenanigans coming out of the Supreme Court judgments of late. So how can you build strong institutions when those institutions are not manned by persons who got the mandate of the people, the popular vote, to be there?
I remember in 2015 I led a survey on corruption in Nigeria, and 24% of Nigerians blamed weak public institutions for the prevalence of corruption in Nigeria.
Under the Goal 16, there are some very critical targets. I will mention a few of them. Significantly reducing all forms of violence and related death rates everywhere. By 2030, significantly reducing illicit financial and arms flows, strengthen the recovery and return of stolen assets, and combat all forms of organized crime, substantially reducing corruption and bribery in all their forms. The government of the day will say they are working hard in some of these areas.
I'm able to say that it's one of the freest countries to live in the world.
But some of the comments from non-governmental agencies say otherwise. Transparency International does not think we are doing well. Amnesty International rates us low. But what exactly should we be doing?
We can't continue electing ethnic champions, tribal warlords, religious zealots, okay? Without anybody we need to elect must be intellectually sound.
I think there's a lot of capacity building that needs to go on in public institutions.
Stop for a moment and think. 2030, either 10 years away or a decade away, whichever way you may want to put it. It might look far away, but it beckons. When we build a peaceful, just environment where strong institutions are built, we might be on a fast track in achieving most of the sustainable development goals. So you see, the Goal 16 is very important to our development as a people. Shewaki Maloye, reporting for Channels Television News.
We're now being joined at the news at 10 by Mr. Jude Ilo, a lawyer and the country director of Open Society Initiative for West Africa. He joins us from our studio in Abuja. Mr. Ilo, thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you very much.
From the report that we just watched, let's begin by identifying what you would say is Nigeria's stance and how far we have come in attaining Goal 16, which is building strong institutions.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, the short report tells the story very clearly that as a country, we are still struggling in having institutions that are independent, accountable, and progressive. Without going into very deep details, a quick look, for instance, at the security sector, the institutions in that sector, and the daily horror stories we are hearing about abuse of power and the lack of accountability in the actions of our security agents tells you that we've got a problem there. But I want to make one point. The biggest duty before us is that in an executive, in a presidential system of government, it is in a democracy, it is important that the institutions of government restrain themselves. Yes, the law stipulates how they're supposed to function, but if you look at the presidential powers in Nigeria, you can understand that it's quite massive and enormous. It is important that even without reference to the various checks that the Constitution has put in place, that people who exercise power in this country should first of all exercise self-restraint, so that in that sense, it makes it easy for the checks and balances that our Constitution has put in place to work. Because we understand that the power wielders can actually undermine those structures. But if they begin to restrain themselves by themselves, it makes it easy for this whole idea of an accountable system, an accountable society to even happen at all.
So you have identified some of the factors that are holding us back from achieving Goal 16, but what would be the important things to keep in mind as we head towards this goal?
I think first is for us to acknowledge that we're not doing well. You know, the absence of rule of law, the lack of respect for rule of law in this country is making it practically impossible for our democracy to thrive. Everybody is a law unto themselves. Governments decide which court orders to obey. Powers are applied without any form of restraint. Discretion is taking over the laws. So we cannot actually function effectively. Democracy is not built on whims and mood of the power wielders. Democracy is built on the rule of law, on clear laws that must be followed at all times. And so we need to start from there to make sure that especially those of us who are in power, citizens who are in power, leaders who are in power, that they make themselves accountable to the law that has established their offices. I think that is the starting point. The second thing for me is that increasingly people are losing faith in the capacity of the states to take care of them. And to that extent, they feel that they have to find ways of taking care of themselves. And this is a recipe for anarchy. Therefore, the state has to be responsive to the pulse of the country, because Goal 16 talks about just, peaceful, and inclusive society. And for society to be inclusive, it has to respect every member of that society. Sovereignty in Nigeria rests with citizens. And therefore, government must work for the benefit of the citizens. The current situation where people are not able to find their voices, the civic space is under threat, with all these funny laws that our legislators are thinking of putting in place, makes it difficult for us to meet these goals. And the third point is that we need to actually do something about our security sector. The level of impunity and recklessness that is being exhibited by our security agency is worrying. We just heard the story yesterday of the footballer that was thrown out of a moving bus and he died. These are the kind of stories we hear on a daily basis, and these are the stories that undermine the capacity of the Nigerian state to not only achieve these goals, but even have legitimacy and credibility before its citizens.
Mr. Judodo, thank you again for joining us on the News at 10. Appreciate your thoughts and your analysis on Goal 16. When the News at 10 returns, we will examine how to sustain Nigeria's economic growth in the wake of recent ratings by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. We're joined by in-house data analyst Babajide Obusowo, who join us again.